Natalie and Amos, first of all, thank you so much for allowing us to interrupt your lunch break and taking a minute for us. Share with us a little bit what you're currently working on.
So we both work on the Scratch Educational Initiative, which includes the Scratch programming language where kids can create their own stories, animations, and games. And then also, really importantly, the online community, which Amos can talk about.
Mm-hmm. So not only can kids program and create all kinds of things with Scratch, but then they can share their projects with the world. And so to date we have 6,191,000 that have been uploaded by people creating things with Scratch. And of course you can see those projects, you can provide feedback on them because there's an entire online community built around it. And you can even remix them by sort of viewing the source code and making your own changes.
We designed it to be sort of like snapping together Lego bricks so that each of the things you don't have to worry about syntax or typing. So they're just colorful blocks that you snap together to make your program. So we've seen a lot of kids and even adults get really interested for the first time in learning how to program and design their own interactive stories and games and any kind of project that they're interested in they can make. And we're pretty amazed that we launched it in 2007, and as Amos mentioned, millions of projects now created and millions of young people who are learning how to create their own projects, getting an idea and then making it, experimenting. And we really built it for tinkering. There's no error messages. It's really built for trying things out and then seeing, is it doing what you want, and getting feedback from other people.
Wow. So it's a product, it's a community, it's a whole ecosystem of creative collaboration.
Yeah.
What's the backstory here? How did all of that begin, and what was the journey kind of from the very beginning to what you have now as a very impressive?
Well, we have hundreds of iterations. I don't know if you can see, it says right now version 423, but we have a book where some of the very beginning, and we really from the beginning, even though it wasn't done, we started having people try it out. Us and then some undergrads from MIT, and then we did a course for educators, and we saw all the problems that happened. It looks very, very different when we first started. So that's the first
prototype here?
Yeah, this is the first prototype. It looked completely different. But actually, I shouldn't say completely, because there's certain things like this, a loop for things to go forever, some of the block ideas, but the whole interface, and it actually had much more things, less constraints then, but that was a problem because things would get confused and it was much less clear. So it was actually a process of making a smaller number of things that then people could really understand and use in more powerful ways.
So one of the learning was being more specific in the constraints.
Yes, like before anything could tell anything to do anything, so you could have this perspective, and then we realized to constrain it so each character or object, they have their own scripts, and then you can look between them, and that made it much clearer for kids, and actually a little more like object-oriented, even though it's not, but it just helps make much clearer who's doing what, and you can look to see that. So that was a really important constraint, because even we had grad students from Harvard and MIT who were confused when you could just have anyone talk to anyone. So now that we constrained it, so that was just one example of a constraint that we put in. So yeah, that was definitely one of the things. I think the other bigger thing that we learned was just how important it was trying it out. So rather than going too far along, so we try out the next thing, and that's constantly getting feedback. Even now, as we're in our, the whole second generation of Scratch, we're constantly getting feedback from young people and then improving based on ideas that they have and ways that we see them using it.
Yeah, so the community and the tool are designed to really have quick, instant feedback. So on Scratch, you see if I drag out one of these blocks and click on it, immediately the cat moves. I can drag out another one of these blocks and stick it to the bottom of that, just like Legos. Now I have a moving and turning cat, but since this is a computer, of course, I can do things like looping. So you can see there's a little forever loop right here. And now when I click this, I immediately have something working. So the feedback is instantaneous, things are happening. And we find that that's really, really important when you're trying to engage people and using a tool for creative expression.
No, that was definitely part of it. I think that was almost what part of the impetus for making Scratch and this next generation of programming language for kids that followed on from Logo was seeing the power of, with the internet, that we had got to this phase where people were starting communities like Flickr had just been launching, and that people were sharing their photos, and that was inspiring them. So that was a big impetus for designing the language and then also making the community.
And we find that it's so powerful for kids, not only to be able to create these things, but also to sort of share them, to give and get inspiration. So, you know, the basic gist of how it works is this is a project created by somebody on 2D airplane physics. I have never tried this before. It's a first, so I'll have to kind of try to figure it out. Oh, there's the thrust here. So I think I'm going to take off if I know how. Up, down to tilt, up, down. There's enough. Oh, well, I can't quite drive this plane. Oh, there we go. All right, we're in the air. So this is a project that, you know, you can use to sort of do a simulator that someone created. Here are all the blocks that are used to make it possible. So of course you can make your own modification from it. But as I said, the community is a really, really powerful aspect, because there are people who are kind of giving feedback. Here's a question from 1 minute ago in a comment. This is awesome. Talking about kind of what's new and exciting. And you can see over here, there are a bunch of different remixes of changes of that. So this is one that looks like it has maybe a rocket ship instead of the airplane. So that community is a place for you to share your inspiration, but then have it given back to you in all kinds of different interesting forms. And that's really, really powerful driver of the creative process.
To me, one of the things is really just the range of projects people made. And I guess we thought, well, this will be an introduction to learning how to program, but we didn't realize the whole range of ages and projects, and the community dynamics, and that it would grow so large. So, and that they would get so involved. I mean, I think we thought, okay, they'll make animations and games, but the fact that they're involving other people in making games, some of them things that it can't do, they figured out how to do. So like 3D, that there's a whole genre of kids and adults figuring out how can you do 3D things within the constraints. So the way that people play with the constraints, I think, yeah, to me, the community dynamics and the liveliness and the fact that kids are making tutorials for other kids is something I never thought they would want to do.
And we thought we would be making tutorials for them to make interesting things with Scratch. It turns out they actually make many more than we ever could.
Yeah, tutorials on how to draw things, but also how to program in Scratch and how to cook things. I mean, all different. And it is not particularly made for that, but they're figured out ways to make it work, to make these. Eamon's showing just all these different ones. A lot of these are about animation, because there's a whole group of kids interested in anime and animation. But all these different sub-communities that have grown.
So this is something that a Scratcher made describing how they draw a favorite anime character of theirs. And so as you see, it starts out with kind of a rough line drawing, and then she adds in the different details and explains how to think about those. And even using the tool, you know, how to come up with the colors that she wants and the whole entire process. And now everybody else can sort of see this and get inspiration, not only for the final product, but also for the process that led to the creation of the final product.
Wow.
And so that's really inspiring and exciting to us when we see kids getting so into that.
So the kids are taking over roles at first that you thought you would be playing for them. So what is really your role then? So what is it kind of what is it that you do that allows this whole ecosystem to
Well, we can each have our own idea, because I have two answers, and I'll be interested to hear what Amos says. To me, two things. I mean, one thing, when we were designing the community, we kept it pretty simple. Again, these constraints, that there's just ways to share projects, studios where you can talk about projects. I mean, that's the basic infrastructure, and then there are these discussion forums. But a lot of it just happens because it was simple enough. Then they could figure out, okay, this is all there is to it. Then they have appropriated it in different ways. So I think I've seen other sites where they think, oh, they might want this feature and that feature, and then it gets so complicated, people don't know how to use it. So if you had these basic, simple infrastructure, and then they've figured out ways they can do, text-based games that we never thought, so they've been able to use that. I guess the other thing is, as like Andres Monroy Hernandez is one of the grad students who started the first version of the website, as part of our team, and then others just on our team, as we see young people taking initiative, then really bringing it to the fore, like helping other people see, because some of them are going to be leaders in an area, and then like giving good feedback, then we really try to amplify that and support them both by giving them like space. And so whenever we see kids taking positive initiative, then we try to think, how can we make that really apparent to others, and how can we support others who might not think of it themselves but could do that?
Yeah, and even how do we make a role to fit these people's talents? You know, they want to give so much to this community that they really appreciate. So we'll create a role for them to sort of take on and have different ways of contributing and collaborating with us as well, because it's their community in a lot of ways. I mean, those are great. The only thing that I would add to that is it's really, instead of the normal kind of classroom model where you think about like a teacher and then a bunch of students kind of receiving the information from the teacher, this is really kind of like an ecosystem, really is the best metaphor. And so what our job is to do is to make sure that that ecosystem maintains the qualities that support the kind of creativity that we like to see. And that really involves a lot of moderation. I mean, if anybody's been on the internet and read comments before, they're not all that nice, right? So we knew pretty early on that we didn't want the kind of environment that's really common on, say, YouTube. So we spent a lot of time and energy establishing norms about friendliness, about how it's okay to give feedback as long as it's constructive. You don't have to say you like everything, but you do have to say, you know, what could be improved if you don't like it, and that sort of thing. And we find that that creates the kind of safe environment for creative expression and iteration, and the safety that's required to fail. That is so key to a successful learning environment like this.
Wow, very interesting and inspiring. So what I heard you describing is, it's not like coming in with ideas and, you know, or with a predefined set of roles, which then, you know, you fit other people into, but it's really the primacy of listening, right? Kind of attending to identifying where are these ideas, where people take initiatives. And then you said creating space for them, right? Creating space and roles around them. And then it's also paying attention to the entire ecosystem and what it needs in terms of cultivation, right? The moderation, the norms. So those are really, I think you're describing another model of leadership there. That's a lot needed in the world. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks.
Thank you.